how that bailout and how that stimulus money was spent, then we are not going to have full accounting for what we are spending our tax dollars on in the future.
Thank you, Commander. Gentlemen, I think you'll like this one. This comes from these two lovely ladies right here. Please give the audience your best stump speech on why we should elect you to the U.S. Congress to represent the great state of Nevada. And we will start with Mr. Hassan.
Can I stand?
Sure.
I've been sitting way too long the last 2 days. A stump speech. That's actually very easy. First off, I'm not a politician, and that is a plus. That is what we need in this country. I have experience in business. I know how to put people to work. That is one of the biggest problems we have in this country. I also understand what business faces with regulatory regimes and taxation. We need to address this. It's best to have a businessman that has experienced these things in the past and been successful at running a business. Without having somebody like me in office, we have a politician, possibly, that doesn't understand what it's like to put people to work. They say a good game, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of putting people to work, that's where my strong point lies. I know how to do this. Now, I understand the Constitution. I understand what the ramifications of not following the Constitution are. But I also understand that if we do not follow the rule of law in this nation, this republic will fall. We must, absolutely must restore the rule of law. Then businesses will operate right. Politicians in office will not try to get away with doing things that the average person won't get away with doing because they'd be in jail. And then we'll start to see the republic rebuild itself.
Thank you. Commander.
Although I've been sitting for a while, I think I'll still sit, even though we've got a long drive up here and a long drive home after this. I grew up in Nevada, graduated from Congressional High School, went off to the Naval Academy. 4 years there, thought I wanted to come home because quite honestly, I walked into Washington, D.C. and went like this and said, what's this humidity? Get back to the high desert air. It took me 26 years to finally get to a point where I could start reaching that and serving back in the nation. I have seen how, unfortunately, Washington works from inside the Pentagon, both from the civilian side and the military side. I've seen the compromises that unfortunately went on within our military itself. I will be honest with you. Do I have legislative experience? No. I won't begin to stand in the shadow of our founding fathers. But they didn't have legislative experience, yet they went on to build and provide the framework of the greatest nation on the face of the earth with absolutely unlimited potential in a document called the Constitution. And look what we've been able to do with it since then. We still are the greatest nation on the face of the earth. The life experiences that I saw with 26 years in the Navy, standing up to an administration that is taking this nation in the wrong path, and going toe-to-toe with the President and his Attorney General on issues that affect our national security with Guantanamo Bay, with military commissions, on holding terrorists accountable. Those are the kind of things that I can bring to bear. I have, like I mentioned before, the integrity, the strength of character to stand in that ethical firestorm for Washington, D.C., and I will represent one thing and one thing only: your values, your principles, and your future. I want you to look at me because I will represent those things because you want to be proud of what I can bring to Nevada and do for Nevada. To be honest with you, being able to tell the truth and not cut non-aggression acts with guys like Harry Reid and to call him out when it is necessary is what it's going to take. I will do that because I believe in the future of each and every one of you. I believe in our state, and I will do what's necessary to put Nevada back on top again.
Thank you, Commander. Mr. Amodei.
Thanks, Trevor. You know, quite frankly, there's a crisis of credibility as far as Washington, D.C. goes right now. And so I don't think, if any of you think that I would ask you to seriously consider me because I've served for 14 years in the Nevada legislature, I'm not. That's not the request at all. I would like you to take a look at what was done. And remember this, it's a citizen legislature. You have to have a day job. It pays about $10,000 a year. So you basically have to be a multitasker. But that's not the request. I would submit to you that you get to retire based on term limits because you remember who it was that gave you the job. When you were out there in your communities, working on behalf of those people, both as somebody in the private sector for the last 24 years, which is how I earned my living, and also as a public servant. Legislative service in Nevada is public service. Yes, the decisions are daunting, but it's still public service. You have to go to the soccer field and take the heat. You have to go shopping in the grocery store. You have to go down Main Street and talk to those folks. And it's a neat thing to say you did. And I am honored to have received 2 re-election campaigns where I averaged 8% of the vote. It's not because I was a professional politician. It was because I am one of you, and it's because I told the truth, and it's because I never forgot who I worked for. I would hope that those are things that are very important to you as you select who it is. Not afraid to get in the fight, stand my ground, prevail my share of the time, and not afraid also to have to make a point to be carried out on my shield. I think that's the spirit of Nevada, that's the spirit of this community, and that's the spirit we can change the course of this nation.
Thank you. This question comes from Bob. Jim, we're halfway through the questions. Commander, we'll start with you. Every time I hear a politician say, quote, we need to secure our borders, I yawn tune out. And this is Bob, not me. We have been given the same answer for years and years and years, and yet nothing changes and our borders are not secure. Exclamation point. What's your solution to actually securing our borders?
There's no one simple, elegant solution to that question. The reality is, when it comes to the entire issue of illegal immigration and securing our border, it is not just a south of the border problem, it is our problem. Each and every one of us know that we have people living in our communities that are not here legally. That's just a blunt reality. When it comes to securing our borders, there are a number of things that you can do. There are physical improvements that you can make. There are also things like Real ID. If you want to stop the problem of people coming here illegally, you have to go to the core source of why they're coming here. They come here for economic opportunity. If you cut off the economic opportunity and why they're coming here to earn money, which then in the billions of dollars leaves our country, that needs to stop. But in order to do that, you have to put a couple things into place. You have to make sure that money doesn't have a right to privacy. If you want money leaving this country, prove you're here legally. For the employers that have to hire these people, where all they do right now is fill it out, make that Real ID program work. Give those employers out there, from the small businesses to the corporations, the tools that they have so that they can say, we know who you are, that you're here legally, that you're here to contribute to our nation, or if you just want to be here temporarily for a worker's season and then leave, that we give them the opportunity to do that. Many people do come to this country. They contribute in great ways to making our economy work, and then they can leave legally. We don't need to have them here. So when you look at what it takes to secure our border, you need to do a multifaceted approach. We have dealt with the problem of illegal immigration in a holistic manner. We need to look at the entire problem. You can't just secure the border. You can't just go after illegals. You can't just go after the employers that hire them. We have to do it all. We've done it once before with welfare reform during the Clinton administration in a bipartisan manner. You can take on a thorny, complex issue and solve it. I believe we have the ability to do that with immigration as well, and it does need reform, and we can do it.
Thank you. Mr. Amodei.
Great question, Bob. It kind of reminds me of the adage where the problem is there's water in the sink. You need to address the faucet before you decide what to do with what's in the sink. And so before you talk about what's going on inside the country with those folks who are here illegally, by the way, the word is illegal, I think you have to first and foremost say, how do you provide what is an undisputable constitutional duty of the federal government? There are some of the issues in border security. When people are here, they're rightfully states' rights issues. So don't forget the 10th Amendment when we have this discussion. And many states have started down that road, Arizona, Georgia, things like that. So before you say we're from the federal government, we're here to help you, make sure that we leave to the states what is rightfully theirs. But the question Bob asked is, secure the border. How do you shut that faucet off so then you can figure out a responsible way to deal with the water in the sink already, if you will? And I would submit to you this. It is a combination of three things. There are physical improvements, there's technology, and there's personnel. You have to focus on that first and say, what is the proper mix in employment? What is your plan to use physical improvements? What is your plan to use technology? And that is a terrain-specific thing, whether it's the border between Texas and San Diego, whether it's coastlines on the Gulf, the West Coast, the East Coast, or whether it's the Canadian border. And the problem is we have not focused exclusively on that. To start with chopping the wood in front of you, if you will. That's what needs to be done. First and foremost, stop the flow by whatever means are necessary, because it is undoubtedly a federal responsibility under the Constitution and not the states. Once having done that, then we can talk about how many people are really here and what are the appropriate solutions. But until you do that most basic of federal responsibilities, which is secure the border, it's all a tail-chasing exercise in my view.
Thank you. Mr. Fasano.
Well, I got a novel idea. How about we start drawing down some of the wars? We start putting our military on the border, enforcing border security, protecting the nation. That is their job. When we do this, they can interdict drugs, coyotes bringing people across that border, and most importantly, terrorists. All of these combined will start to draw down illegal immigration. Now, the other part of this equation is that we have to actively enforce the current immigration laws that are on the books in this country. We cannot selectively choose what laws we're going to follow. We are going to have to selectively choose to follow all the laws, and that means all immigration laws. Then we could follow the model of Arizona and use E-Verify. When an individual that goes into a company that wants to get a job, if he can't produce documentation that he's in this country legally, then we use the E-Verify system to root him out. If they can't pass through E-Verify, they shouldn't be able to get a job in this country. If that were to happen, they will exit either the state of Nevada or whatever state they're in. They will go back to where they came from because they can't get a job. Now, physical enforcement is obviously important. It's something that we need to address. We need to extend the fencing on the border, but we also need to put electronic surveillance in place, and that investment is the responsibility of the federal government.
Thank you. All right, folks, this comes from Eddie. What do you think we should, this is a two-part, excuse me. Mr. Amodei, we'll start with you. What do you think we should do about organized labor and government jobs when the pensions and benefit packages they advocate and negotiate are bankrupting the states? Also, do you believe prevailing wage government jobs needs to be changed?
Thank you. Prevailing wage first. I am unaware, other than for political victory and plum purposes, why it ought to cost more to do a government public works project than it would a private works project. So I think what prevailing wage represents is a victory for the union folks in terms of policy, but the reason for capital projects that cost more than the government builds is it escapes me, especially in the present times now. So no to prevailing wage, in my view. Second, what we have learned, especially here in Nevada at the local levels, is this. When we have times that are tough economically, we learn the same lessons in Wisconsin and Ohio. The fact that if there are public labor unions that have wage and benefit contracts in place, when the federal government or when a governmental entity like here in Nevada experienced a 40% drop in general fund revenues, and you had folks like the teachers union saying, we don't care what your income picture is, we want to sit on those contracts and have you continue to fund them the same way. When businesses have to cut back, when individuals have to cut back, when non-governmental entities have to economize, that represents a major disconnect with reality, and that should not be something that is held over our heads. So I would be opposed to public sector unions on wages and benefits negotiations because as we have learned most recently here with the local level in Nevada, especially with the teachers union and also in other states, that there is absolutely no indication from those folks that they care about what kind of shape that government is in, and that is a luxury that our folks in government don't have. Final point is this, though. The elected folks in government need to stand up to those folks in those negotiations and say no instead of constantly yes.
Thank you, Mr. Fasano.
I'll take the prevailing wage issue first. I think we need to repeal the Davis-Bacon Act, pure and simple, because public labor is no more valuable than private labor. As a businessman who understands labor,